I currently live in the United States. I would move to Canada, the Philippines, or Australia. I currently live in the United States. I would move to Canada, the Philippines, or Australia. Story 1. Finland, Norway, Denmark. As a Swedish person, it really does not make much of a difference. All the Nordic countries are great. Story 2. I have dual citizenship, United States and Italy, so probably Ireland is the first European Union country that comes to mind where language would not be an issue. If I had guaranteed citizenship for any country, it would be New Zealand. Story 3. Scotland, Wales, or Ireland. If the United Kingdom does not count, then it will be Ireland, New Zealand, or Canada. I live in England right now. Story 4. This is a surprisingly important question for me, as I live in the Baltic states, and there is a problem in the Eastern region. Norway is a common destination. As an Eastern European, many people emigrate to work there, so the stereotype is that you can become a millionaire. I am not expecting that, though it would likely pay more than where I live now. I loved going there last summer. The slightly colder climate and mountains are a dream to me. I have heard Norwegians are not the friendliest to foreigners, but with the waves of immigration, I cannot really blame them. I am used to dealing with such people if this is true. I only have interesting things to say about Norway because I have actually thought this through somewhat. The other two options are just off the top of my head. Iceland, again, I do enjoy cold climates. Germany, because it does not seem like too drastic of a change from where I live now. Story 5, from the United States also, and we'll pick the Philippines too. Others would probably be Vietnam and Germany. I am pretty sure I have almost everyone in the two islands I frequented as a Facebook friend by now. Mayors, politicians, barangay captains, you name it. Hopefully, they can put in a good word for me if I have to permanently move there. Great people. Fun times. Story 6. As a Hispanic, I can just throw a dart and move to any of the Latin American countries or Spain. I wouldn't mind living in Europe or spending some time in New Zealand. Story 7. Canada, Germany, or England. I have family in Canada, so that would help. I lived in Germany for a few years. Story 8. Australia, New Zealand, and as a very last resort, Canada. I do not have any problems with Canada as a country. I just want to be far away from the United States. Story 9. Those are all good choices, but my wife would not go to the Philippines or Australia. It would be Canada, Great Britain, or Portugal for us. Story 10. From Canada. Probably the United Kingdom. Wife has citizenship through her father. New Zealand, I would be able to get a dairy farming job easily. Or Norway, I have some distant cousins there. Other candidates would include Ireland, Australia, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Italy. Story 11. I live in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. I am already going to have a rough time figuring out how to make a living. I do not need to add another language to it. I am indifferent to the loss of income that I would experience in such a move. If things are bad enough in the United States that I am getting my family out of there, I will be content working the deep fryer and hoping that my daughter will do better. Story 12. I am in Canada. I would probably choose another Commonwealth or former Commonwealth country, such as New Zealand, Ireland, or the United Kingdom. I would miss the Pacific Northwest, but Washington and Alaska are part of a country where I could never risk living. Story 13. I am from Australia and honestly would be devastated if I had to leave my beautiful country. If I had to, I would probably choose Canada, Denmark, or Germany. Story 14. 1. Canada is culturally closest to the United States, so much so that it would probably feel more like moving to a different state than a different country. Ireland is an English-speaking country with an exceptionally high GDP per capita, making it seem like a nice option to move to. Additionally, they are a European Union member, so if I obtain Irish citizenship, I could then move to another European Union country later if I desired. Norway is one of the highest English proficiency countries in the world, and it is a Nordic country known for having its affairs well organized. Story 15. Chile has no mosquitoes and offers beautiful vistas. I am also fluent in Spanish. However, the food is not very good. Germany, Austria, or Switzerland would make my wife very happy because she has been trying to learn German since high school. I could live in the United Kingdom as well. Scotland is nice. Story 16. Born in United Kingdom, moved to New Zealand, so running out of options. Probably Australia or Canada. If it were not for lack of language skills, I would say Italy or France. Story 17. I live in England, not including Wales, Ireland, or Scotland, as that feels like a cheat. Portugal, my wife's family is from there, and I love the way of life. Australia, I have friends there, and again, the way of life seems good. Canada, I have always had a soft spot and am a big lover of ice hockey. I would go to America if they could sort out the craziness. As it is currently, I do not even know if I would risk going on a holiday there. Story 18. Canada, Portugal, France, and Ireland. Dual Canadian and European Union citizen, so it is easier for me to look at it this way. Story 19. If I were a wealthy man who could afford that, probably Japan. In our reality, another country in Eastern Europe. Story 20. I like it here. Besides, I literally did this 8 months ago. Left the United States for Canada and have not looked back. My other realistic option was Mexico. I chose Canada because job prospects and wages are better. Plus, I already speak English and my Spanish is not that great. Story 21. Canada, Switzerland, and France. Mostly because they all have beautiful, diverse nature, and I think the people in all of them are quite sophisticated. There are no shouting matches, macho culture, or anything like that. Story 22. Do I have to go through the whole process of obtaining citizenship, getting a job, finding a place to stay, etc.? Or am I transferred directly to the country of choice? If it is the first case, probably the United Kingdom, Germany, or Canada. If it is the second case, probably Spain or Switzerland. Story 23. In this order. 1. Australia. 2. Canada. 3. Philippines. I currently live in Norway and do not plan on moving. I like the idea of Switzerland and might also consider building a winter home in Portugal, Spain, Italy, or Croatia. Croatia is beautiful. Story 24. I am American. I could go to Spain, Japan, or the United Kingdom. I have taken 4 years of Spanish, so I could communicate slowly. Due to a United States government program, I am going to learn a bit of Japanese this summer. The United Kingdom works for obvious reasons. I would hate leaving my girlfriend and friends behind, though. Story 25. From Canada. France. 2. Norway. 3. New Zealand. New Zealand and Norway are interchangeable, but I loved every minute I spent in France. Story 26. Living in the United States right now. My picks are Northwest Ireland, Mexico, or Germany. I sometimes think that if they are going to deport citizens to their family's country of origin, then sign me up. I will finally get affordable healthcare, good education, paid leave, and not have to stress about gun-toting brainwashed fanatics who think that human decency is somehow taboo. Story 27. Australia, England, and New Zealand speak the same language and have similar cultures. They do not share the exact same culture but have overlapping influences. Currently in the United States of America. Story 28. I am Swiss. I like Norway and Denmark. Norway felt very familiar and comfortable but also different enough to be very interesting. The third country, which is practically cheating, would be Liechtenstein. Story 29. Germany, which is where my best friend of many years lives, Ireland, or somewhere in the United Kingdom. Ireland for the weather and the landscape, Germany for my friend and how she describes life and care, and the United Kingdom for a mix of countryside and city access. Story 30. Being from New Zealand, I am surprised how many people want to move here. My choice would be Australia, and now I am out of ideas. Story 31. I am from Denmark, so my first choice would probably be Norway while I still have children who need to go to school. Canada would also be a good option. I would like to retire in Portugal later, or in another country in Southern Europe. Story 32. From Northern Ireland. The Republic of Ireland would be an obvious solution. Otherwise, probably Japan or Australia. I just find both interesting. Story 33. Currently, the United States, Singapore, New Zealand, and Canada are among the least corrupt countries that speak English. Story 34. I scrolled and did not see Uruguay mentioned. I mostly live in Mexico now, but if I had known about Uruguay before, I would probably be there. It is a really cool country with low crime, super nice people, and a solid economy. Story 35. Anywhere that speaks English to start, such as Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. However, I would not be happy about it. Story 36. Switzerland, Sweden, Italy, United Kingdom, Ireland, Canada, Spain, Australia, Germany. As a United States citizen, I will say with confidence as long as it is not Sudan, Somalia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, or North Korea. Story 37. Canada, Norway, and the Netherlands. Sadly, I think leaving might be out of reach for me. I am genuinely scared of what is going to happen here. Story 38. Australia, because I have family there. Not Canada, because I have in-laws there and it is cold. Spain, France, Belize, Bermuda, Malta. Story 39. I currently live in the United States. I would like to live in the United Kingdom, but if I could not pick the United Kingdom, I guess Canada or Australia. Story 40. Canada, United Kingdom, Netherlands, because I am already familiar with the languages. Second set. Mexico, Spain, Italy. I am not as good with Spanish and Italian, but I can manage. Story 41. In the United States of America, I am a citizen of the United States of America and the United Kingdom. I have passports for both countries. I would go straight to Portugal. P.S. As a person of color, forced may mean being sent to El Salvador, even without a criminal history. Story 42. I live in Israel. I would probably like the Czech Republic, Austria, or Japan. The Czech Republic is amazing. I was actually close to moving there for a year or two. I love it, and the people are wonderful. Austria is absolutely great as well. I did not feel any danger or anti-Semitism there, which is very important. Japan is very interesting to me, but it is not realistic because, from what I have heard, they are harsh on outsiders. That could definitely work for something temporary. Story 43. I want to permanently leave the country where I currently live. I have already selected a city where I would like to live. Since you are interested in the country, it is Germany. Norway and Sweden were also considered. I am trying to escape the heat. Story 44. I am from the United Kingdom. Canada, Australia, or somewhere in Europe to be close to family, so I guess Switzerland, Norway, or France. Story 45. China, Mexico, and Thailand. I live in the United States. Places like the Philippines, Japan, Malaysia, and Brazil also stand out to me. Story 46. Currently in the United Kingdom. I would go anywhere in Europe or Scandinavia. I would have added Canada to the list, but it would be like living above a council scatterflat. Preferred choice? Probably Spain. Lovely people, lovely weather, good food. Story 47. United States citizen living in Spain currently. I would go to France, Portugal, or Canada. This is without knowing much about the Nordic countries or Italy. Story 48. I am not a man, but I am from Canada. If I absolutely had to leave my country, I would try to go first to the United Kingdom, visiting England first, then Wales, and then Scotland. The second country I would try is Iceland, followed by France. I base these three choices on my ancestry. No offense intended, but I would never try to live in the United States. That country scares me almost as much as Afghanistan. Story 49. The United States, Thailand, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, Costa Rica, Ireland, Uruguay, Vietnam. I received an invitation this month to live in a beautiful cottage on a lovely property in San Miguel and work remotely. I cannot do it due to obligations, but will likely cash out at some point and go. There is nothing for me here anymore. My children are grown and single. Story 50. I could leave the United Kingdom for the Republic of Ireland or the Netherlands right now. Another option would be Norway, where I have been several times and which works for me in terms of job opportunities. The order of preference would be the Netherlands, Ireland, and Norway. Story 51. Ideally, Korea, Germany, or Taiwan. I live in the United States. I have lived and worked in Korea and Germany and loved the people and the culture, especially Korea. Story 52. I am in the United Kingdom. I really like Belgium and the Netherlands, so probably there. I would also consider Ireland. Story 53. I do not have direct experience with countries, but Northern Europe appeals to me. I have heard my own state is very similar to Scandinavian countries in terms of climate. Story 54. I am in the central Midwest United States. I would move anywhere, actually. Top of the list would be New Zealand because I have friends there. Russia because there are some very interesting places I want to visit, and Chile for the same reason. Story 55. Original poster, I understand Canada and Australia, but the Philippines in the same category? Don't get me wrong, as a Canadian, I love traveling to the Philippines as a tourist, but as a resident, that's another level of struggle I would not want. What makes you choose it? To answer the post, I would choose Australia, the United States, or Italy. Story 56. American. I would move to Germany, Austria, or Switzerland. As a Midwesterner, the culture of North Rhine-Westphalia and Lower Saxony is really familiar. As a snowboarder, the proximity to mountains and ski areas is important to me. Story 57. Top choice would be the Netherlands. The easiest choice would be Sweden. The third choice could be Austria. Story 58. Top 3 options if I had to leave the United States. Brazil, dual citizen. Portugal, resident on arrival for Brazilians. Spain, as I could get fast-track citizenship with my Brazilian passport. Story 59. From Germany, I would go to the Netherlands, Switzerland, or Norway because I have friends there, know the language, they are close by, and the countries are beautiful. More interesting but less realistic options would probably be Japan or the United States if they improve their situation. Story 60. From Canada. France. 2. Norway. 3. New Zealand. New Zealand and Norway are interchangeable, but I loved every minute I spent in France. Story 61. I live in the United States. I would move to one of the following countries. 1. Australia. 2. New Zealand. 3. Canada. If I had the opportunity to move to another country, I would love to try living on the complete opposite end of the world. Australia and New Zealand both have a high quality of living, and I think they would suit me well. If I cannot move there, then I will just go to Canada. Story 62. Maybe Spain first, since I could actually learn Spanish beyond a basic level, and it has direct flights back to Florida, where my family is. Denmark, because my company headquarters is there. But in reality, it is really cold. There is not much to do, and I do not understand the language at all. Story 63. I am in the United States, and I would go to Canada, Germany, then Japan if I were choosing, and neither cost nor politics are a consideration. If they were, it would be Canada, Denmark, and maybe Spain or Greece. Story 64. I am currently in Germany, but if I had to leave, it would be either Ireland, Denmark, or the Philippines. I know Ireland because I used to be an au pair there, and it is the home of my heart. Denmark I could reach by car in 8 hours. It is a stable country with good infrastructure, and the people are nice. In the Philippines, I have some family, the climate is excellent, and English is one of the main languages. Story 65. Norwegians would move to Denmark or Sweden, both close enough to my homeland that I could visit or my family could visit me without breaking the bank each trip. They also share a similar language with Norwegian. Denmark has a written language that is practically the same as Norwegian written language, while Swedish is the same only for spoken language. They are also equally good at English as Norwegians are, so even if I might not understand them in their native language, I could easily converse with them in English. Story 66. New Zealand, Bhutan, and Belgium. I have been to 2 of these countries, and they are great. The other appears to be a very green country. Story 67. I wonder how many of the people replying have any idea what it is actually like to live in some of the countries they are listing. They probably visited for a couple of weeks in the summer once and thought it was all sunshine and rainbows. They do not realize that the nice friendly waiter who served them that delicious meal works 10 hours a day to take home at the end of the month what an American makes in a week. There is a reason why these places seem so good to tourists. Tourists bring in the kind of money the locals do not have. Story 68. I am in South Africa, and it would have to be somewhere with a climate similar to the Western Cape. Spain, Argentina, or Australia, I suppose. Story 69. Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, France, in no particular order. Also, most of the European Union would be fine too, most because I have not been to all countries yet. They would accept me because of the 4 freedoms. Story 70. No need to force me. I'd much rather live in many countries than the United States, but my top 3 are 1. Australia, best quality of life in the world for the working class who are able to spend, save, get sick, vacation, and retire without fear. However, it is too expensive to retire there for most Americans. Italy, because Italy. I will end up in Portugal because it is similar to Italy but has a more liberal government and less drama. Story 71. I guess it really depends on the type of work I can get and my ability to speak the language. Probably Iceland, South Korea, or Germany. Story 72. Canadian here. Norway, Ireland. Italy has always been a dream, but they are currently governed by a right-wing government, so they are not an option. Mexico. Story 73. I am currently in the United States. I would be fine moving to Canada or New Zealand, but I also really like Germany. They have many similar habits and interests to me. Story 74. I live in the United States in California. I would go to Spain, London, or Mexico. I do not want to have to learn a whole new language. Story 75. I am from the United States. I would move to Canada, the United Kingdom, ideally London or Switzerland. I would also love going to a Nordic country. I visited Denmark recently and loved it. I know some places are not the friendliest to immigration, and being Indian American might not be ideal in Canada. I am also not very good with languages, but I would try to learn the native language of whichever country I move to. Story 76. I am an American, born and raised in Los Angeles. Being Japanese, I think I would go to Japan or I would rather die. Story 77. Currently in the United States. Assuming I am being forced out and have to go with the skills, abilities, and money that I currently have, the order would be 1. Canada, culturally very similar to the United States, plus my sister and brother-in-law live there. Hong Kong, I have family who live in Hong Kong, and I speak Cantonese well enough. Culturally, it would take me a minute to adapt, but I would figure it out. England, I am fairly limited to English-speaking countries, so I might as well go with the original. Story 78. The Philippines, like many other Asian countries, does not allow full ownership of a business or property. Only 49% ownership is permitted. Other problems include frequent power outages, raw sewage issues, and legal bureaucracy biased against expatriates. Expatriates may face microaggressions or overt discrimination, which can affect mental health and well-being. Safety can be a concern, with crime being severe and scams widespread. Regarding employment, exploitation exists in certain industries. Story 79. Australian here, I don't mean to be rude, but we are a bit full. We have some of the highest and most unaffordable housing prices in the world and underinvestment in infrastructure. Try New Zealand. I think they actually had more people leaving than arriving. Story 81. English speaking. 2. Finances including conversion rate, job opportunities, and cost of living. 3. Safety. 4. Culture. Balance the main 3, take culture into consideration, and you will probably end up with a similar list to every other reply. Story 81. Poland is my number 1 choice. I would probably want to stay in Eastern Europe if possible. I live in the United States right now. Story 82. Mexico. My husband has family there, and I would like my daughter to be connected to her heritage. Germany. My roots are German. Australia. Who would not want to live there? Even my husband likes Australians, and he does not like most people. Story 83. Irish living in Canada, and I can tell you Canada is gorgeous, especially British Columbia, but the place I am living is just not for me. If I could not live in Ireland anymore, I would move to Spain, Norway, or Romania. Story 84. From the United States, Australia would be my first choice by a long shot. I am from the South, so Australia feels like our sister culture. Beyond that, I am not sure. Scotland or Ireland, I suppose. I could also consider Canada. Story 85. Having become a disorganized anarcho-communist seditionist in recent years, exile feels more likely every day. If the suppressive fascist state, Canada, wanted to expel me despite my being born here, and I had to choose my top 3 countries, I suppose I would ask if Cuba, China, or Vietnam would accept me. Story 86. Norway is just across the border, with a similar climate and social structure. They have good saunas, I already understand most of the language, and they have a strong economy. If not Norway, anywhere within the Schengen area, most likely Estonia. Sweden is my last resort, but I have some family there I can rely on. However, due to the increase in organized crime, it is the least appealing option. They also do not have good saunas, which lowers its appeal. Story 87. Netherlands, Australia, Germany. Hopefully, I can convince them I am one of the good ones from the United States. Story 88. Australia, New Zealand, or Canada. They are in extreme parts of the world. The risk of conflict or war spilling over is low. They are first world countries and have established systems and institutions. That is it. I would avoid anything in the mid-world like Europe and the Middle East and North Africa. I would avoid underdeveloped countries like most of Africa and some parts of Asia. I would also avoid ongoing conflict zones or danger zones like South America, Russia, Ukraine, India, and Pakistan. Story 89. I currently live in Australia. I would be quite insistent on not leaving, but the title does say forced. So, 1. New Zealand. 2. Scotland. 3. Norway. Story 90. I live in Canada, Northern Ireland, or the Netherlands. I have an Irish passport, so I can legally live and work in those places. Story 91. Probably Thailand for the mango sticky rice. Maybe Vietnam, as I do have family there. If I'm hiding from someone because I stole several $1,000,000, then probably the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Story 92. Hypothetical situation, of course. If I were forced to leave the country, that implies it is for legal reasons such as avoiding felony incarceration. In that case, I would probably move somewhere that does not have a formal extradition agreement with my home country, has a low cost of living, and offers general acceptance of people of my race and creed. The where and why are irrelevant at that point. Story 93. Language and employment should be a top priority for everyone. I love Estonia, but only speaking English and Russian would be a limitation. As a Canadian, my choices would be Germany, Lithuania, and Costa Rica. Story 94. Either Scotland, Italy, Tuscany specifically, or Sweden, or any of the Nordic countries, honestly. I chose Sweden first because it is the northernmost and I love cold weather. Story 95. Canadian here. Please do not come here. Our housing is already about 30% more expensive than in the United States. $638,000 US versus $410,000 US. Story 96. I live in the United States. Canada has a lot of nature, and we in the United States always escape there in the movies or in history like the draft and the Underground Railroad. In Norway, I heard women's rights are the best. Greenland, from the Game Plague Incorporated, taught me this is the best place to be. Story 97. Switzerland, Ireland, Germany. I am of Pennsylvania Dutch descent and know a bit of Dutch, so I could get by there. Also, their laws tend to be good in all these places. Story 98. Already planning to leave the United Kingdom for obvious reasons. I am considering going to either Poland, Indonesia, Bali, or France. Story 99. The most likely candidates are Canada, England, and Ireland. If the British Isles are counted as one, then Australia would be included on the list. If it must be a non-English speaking country, then Italy, Switzerland, and probably Sweden or Germany qualify. Story 100. Currently, I live in England. If I were forced to move, I would move to Singapore, Australia, or New Zealand as they all speak English. Singapore is my favorite country to visit on holiday. Story 101. Canada. Lived there for almost a decade. Don't really have anything bad to say compared to any other country except for lacking urbanism and tendency to follow United States culture. I love Toronto, except Etobicoke, Waterloo, and Quebec City. Toronto, Montreal, and Waterloo honestly feel more like home than my own country. Ireland seems quite similar to Canada. Netherlands for the urbanism. I haven't been there except for transfers, but I certainly want to visit. Germany. My dad lived here for a while, and I have friends and relatives who have nothing but positive things to say mostly. France, I kind of like the French culture of life over work and being true to themselves. Vietnam. Seems most similar to the country I'm in except better in just about every way these days. Singapore, I don't know why, but I absolutely love the accent. It has great urbanism and seems like a good place to live. Philippines and Australia are also lovely. All my interactions with Filipinos have been super friendly, and I was a teen when I visited Australia, but it was nice too. Countries I would never want to live in: United States, United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia. Story 102. That's an awful question. I live in the United States and am not finding much better. Japan is a great place to live but not to work, and any children I have would probably suffer discrimination. The same likely applies to Korea. Europe experiences some recessions. This is a tough question. Maybe I will just go to Ukraine and try dodging 152mm artillery. Story 103. United States, Switzerland, Netherlands. Everybody is romanticizing Australia and New Zealand. Read up about them first, just like Canada. Just like I need to read up about Switzerland and the Netherlands. I suspect Russia and China are the future for the next 50 years. Story 104. I have not done enough research to be very specific, but something in the European Union would be high on my list. Story 105. If I had to leave the United States for good: 1. Any Nordic country. 2. Switzerland for the annual shooting event. 3. Spain, my mother's native country. Personally, any country that has a well-developed public transport industry. Story 106. Everyone in my country, after an election, claimed they would move to Canada. None really did. I would go south to Mexico or to the Philippines or to Thailand for various reasons. Story 107. Many people mention Canada here. Isn't Canada's job market challenged by the large number of immigrants? At least that is what I have heard. Story 108. I have 27 that would accept me, whether they like it or not. I would chase work. The place does not matter that much anymore. Story 109. South America, affordable living. 2. Southeast Asia, super affordable and healthy living. 3. Puerto Rico. I will leave the United States once my children are grown. You can make many arguments for or against, but honestly, this country has declined significantly. Unless you have inherited a large amount of money from previous generations, America has become unlivable. Sorry, but I refuse to live just to work. Story 110. I live in the United States. I have visited 53 countries and received mail in at least 10 of them. I would leave this place permanently only if dragged over a pile of spent brass and over the bodies of the first handful who tried to remove me. Story 111. If I were forced to choose, brother, I wish I could escape this place. The United States or the Czech Republic would be okay too, but the United States is the goal. I am Serbian. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.